Hello, this is Editing Miranda here. I am just popping in before the episode starts to apologize for our crunchy audio. We had some technical issues for this recording block, so if we sound off, that's why. But that being said, I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation. Alright, bye. Hello and welcome to the Atomic Lizards Halloween Spooktacular episode. I'm Miranda, I'm joined with Dan and Udi, and today we have something a little different for you. We got together for a Halloween movie day and watched The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, As Above, So Below, and Ghostbusters. So, we will be talking about spoilers most likely in this episode, so go watch them, they're great, and then come back. But yeah, let's start reviewing them. First up is The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals is a 2018 production by Team StarKid. It stars many talented people and is about a guy who doesn't like musicals, hence the title. And aliens from outer space taking over a small island town of Hatchetfield through song and dance. So, what are your initial thoughts on this musical? Dan, would you like to go first?
All right, so yeah, I'll share my thoughts first. It was surprising because I ended up liking The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals a lot more than I thought I would. Yeah, this is my Team Star Kid. I actually am familiar with Star Kid. Back in high school, my good friend Cora was a really big Star Kid fan. She recommended me Holy Musical Batman, and I that was the first Star Kid musical that I watched, and I don't know if I ever finished it, but it was funny. I enjoyed it, and yeah,
It's a great musical.
it is, yeah. And I think just for our audience out there, if you're not familiar with Star Kid, Holy Musical Batman, it's technically Holy Musical Bat Asterisk Man. Like
It's not an asterisk, it's an at sign. It's at man.
yeah, bat at man because
Yeah.
because they didn't yeah,
Copyright.
they don't want to get sued by DC. So but yeah, no, I enjoyed Holy Musical Batman, and I really did enjoy The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. It's funny because, well, I wouldn't say I don't like musicals. I just don't watch a lot of them. The only musicals I really remember liking back in the day was like Hairspray with John Travolta. I don't know if you guys ever watched that.
All the time. That was one of my childhood rewatches.
It was a fun movie.
I watched it a lot when I was a kid as well, and yeah, so I really liked Hairspray, but that's like the only musical I can think of that I really liked from back in the day. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this. It had a surprisingly good story. Like I was surprised with how good the story was, and it has that humorous tone to it, because don't get me wrong, this musical can get pretty serious at times. It does have its serious dramatic moments, but then it's funny because the dramatic moments are kind of they're kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's just because the whole premise is that these aliens are literally zombifying these people into singing and dancing, and the whole singing and dancing aspect of it is just a nice compliment to the dramatic moments, because those moments, they happen, and maybe you can feel it getting a little sad or a little serious, but then it's kind of alleviated once the dancing and singing starts. So I really enjoyed that aspect.
Be here's a dramatic moment where two characters talk about their lives and the sad stuff that happened to them and all this stuff. And then, oh, by the way, there's some aliens who have blue gunk all over their brains and stuff. Very strange contrast, but that's because it's a horror musical, horror comedy musical. So
Because yeah, once again, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it would. And I just want to say once again, in terms of the writing, I was just really surprised. There was one scene that that was very well written, and it was the scene where the guy who didn't like musicals,
Oh,
he was talking with, what was the name of the love interest? I forget her
Emma.
name. Emma. He was talking with Emma, and Emma was talking about her sister and how he was like, yeah, I would tell her that I would go one day, but then I wouldn't end up going. And then I got a notice one day that I got invited to her funeral, and I was like, oh my god, that was really well written. I really liked that
Yeah,
part. So very pleasantly surprised by the guy who didn't like musicals. If you want to watch something kind of spooky but also pretty fun and funny, then and you like musicals, then I would recommend The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals.
that's really good to hear because I wasn't really sure how. I wasn't sure how either of you were going to react, so I'm glad that you liked it. um, Udi, what were your thoughts on the guy who didn't like musicals?
I liked it for what it was. So I'm kind of in a weird spot where I don't tend to really like movie musicals that much. Like, if I'm gonna watch a musical, I'd rather watch it in person. I find it more enjoyable and more palatable in that way.
That's
Um,
fair.
so like this was like kind of like a weird middle ground where it was a live performance, but it was
Hmm.
filmed. So like it's in a weird gray area where I'm like, okay, well, I don't prefer watching musicals in a recorded fashion, but like it was kind of the same experience as like watching it in person, in a way. So like I don't know, it was kind of weird where I'm like, okay, I mean, the part of me that doesn't like movie musicals is like pushing against how I feel. But I mean overall like the actual musical itself was good and enjoyable. It was really funny. I've definitely never seen a musical like it. So that was kind of cool.
It's very unique.
Oh yeah, very unique. Also has a very unique voice. I don't know
Hmm.
if all the Star Kid productions are like that, but yeah, I thought it was good and well done. The choreography and the songwriting and the performances were all really really great. It reminded me a decent bit of like mainly primarily I would say like The World's End. I think it's just because it's like aliens and blue stuff, blue goo, and like taking over a town.
Yeah, definitely has that feel.
But yeah, otherwise. And I guess like also kind of in the same way of like how it's kind of like a network and like
Hmm.
the whole point is to like kind of make things peaceful, which was like literally the same thing as like The World's End. Spoiler alert for that movie. But yeah, I thought it was good and like I said, all the actors did a really, really great job. Did a really, really great job. And even like people who had multiple roles were memorable in each of them. Like even if the same guy was playing like five different roles. Like he was memorable in each one for different reasons, so which I thought was kind of cool. And I guess that's just musicals, but
Yeah, so Jeff Blimp, he's the guy with the long blonde hair. He
yeah,
plays like seven characters,
yeah,
but each of them are very distinct. Same with Joey, he plays the homeless man, and Ted, um, the Paul's coworker in the
yeah,
office. Um, so they're very good at making distinct uh differences in their characters, and the people who play those characters.
agreed. Yeah, yeah. The guy who was the guy with like the long blonde hair, like you said, each of his characters were like very memorable. Like whether it was like the boss of the main character, or it was like the police officer husband of the coworker,
Mhm.
or it was I don't even remember, but like he always hit
Chad
it.
or Stu
Chad,
or
yeah,
Steve. I don't know. He plays one of the working boys.
yeah, working boys. But yeah, yeah, I liked it. And I mean, like I didn't know anything about. Like I had heard of Star Kid Productions. I'm assuming that's the name. Team
Yeah,
Star
you
Kid.
could
That's what
say.
it is. Team Star Kid.
Yeah, it's Star Kid Productions or Team Star Kid. I think they go by both.
Okay. I'd heard of them before, but I again, I'm not like unless I'm seeing it in person, I don't really tend to like seek out musical stuff. So I'd heard of them, but I never watch anything. And then like I had heard of like the Holy Musical Batman. Is that what it is?
Yep, Holy
Yeah,
Musical Batman.
I'd heard of that as well, but again, hadn't ever checked it out or anything. So it was interesting finally, like watching one of these. So yeah, I thought it was good and well
Yeah.
done, and yeah.
Cool. That's good to hear. Was that all of your thoughts, or did you have more?
No, I mean that's pretty much all I have for that, I would say.
Okay, then I guess I'll go into my thoughts. So, um, the guy who didn't like musicals was my pick for Halloween movie day. If that hasn't really been obvious nowadays, I guess. But I very much enjoy Star Kid Productions, Team Star Kid. They're quite fun and funny. They're a little all over the place, but in like a fantastically great way. This is one of their more original. It still like does callbacks to like other like horror movies and stuff like that. I don't remember any offhand, but there are some references in there. But this is mostly like a original story. Um, it's a very good horror musical comedy, and they have several of those types of musicals out now. This is the first musical that is part of like this bigger universe of like Hatchetfield. So if you're looking for more musicals of this nature, check out Black Friday or Nerdy Prudes Must Die. That one literally just came out. Um, they still evolve around Hatchetfield and most of the same cast, but yeah. In general, I really like this musical. It's very good. The music is really good. Like listening and watching it like in this critical mindset that I had when we watched it, um, the music really did stand out, and they really do know how to write good music. And like John's acting, he's the guy that plays Paul, who is the guy who didn't like musical. I really like his transformation scene at the end, where he's like fighting between not singing and singing. And then Jeff and Jamie, so that's the guy with the really long blonde hair, and Jamie is the coworker who gets her guts ripped out wearing the cat sweater. They're both really good with the crazy eye look. They're just all very talented people. So I would highly recommend watching this musical. It's on YouTube. It's free. I mean, you'll have to sit through ads most likely, but it is free. So definitely give it a watch if you haven't. Did you guys have a favorite quote or song or like moment from this musical?
The part that stuck out to me the most, and it's just because like it was unexpected and it was funny, was the part where he's like he John is in the office of with his boss, and then his boss is like alienated,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like he's talking about what he wants his wife to do to him, and I thought
Yeah.
that part was the funniest. But um aside
I
from that,
mean,
I think
it's quite
hey, well,
strange.
I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. I just thought it was funny. I was not expecting it. I don't know. Like I feel like I associate not because musicals are not more than this, because there are definitely lots of musicals that deal with heavy subject matter and are serious and blah blah blah. But I feel like I associate musicals with like silliness because inherently the idea that like people are in a situation just singing about what's happening like ridiculous. So I feel like usually they're a bit more lighthearted and silly.
Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit.
I mean, yeah. But so like when like some of the humor started coming out in this and whatnot, I was like, I was not expecting that. Like, yeah, it was funny from the beginning, but it was more just like typical sort of musical, like ah ha ha, like yeah, it's funny because of this or that. But like I actually started like saying and doing things like this, and I thought that was funny. But I think my other favorite moment was Paul and Emma. I like the part where they're like I think walking through alleys or something, but they're like literally walking through the crowd and like no, turn around, dead end, and they just like have to
They're
keep
like,
walking.
who planted bushes in the alleyway?
Yeah, I like that part. That part was funny.
Yeah. It's a great part. It's pretty funny. Like, they're really good at comedy. Like, it's funny. They're funny people.
Yeah.
And
Plus,
they
I
know
like
how to use. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I like the audience interaction aspect of that part, like that bit too.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they've done that for other musicals too, but I don't remember offhand. Well, they did do this musical called The Trail to Oregon or Oregon Trail, something like that.
Is it based on the
Um,
video game?
yeah, kind of actually, yeah. But so in that one, they're on the Trail to Oregon, and like there's a lot of audience participation in that one too. Would recommend giving that one a watch too if you have some free time.
Does anyone die of dysentery in it?
I mean, I cannot say yes and I cannot say no.
Dang. Well, that's the classic Oregon Trail death. So they have.
Well,
I'm sure
yeah.
someone did.
I mean, it's definitely a threat to their livelihood. Yeah, so Dan, did you have any like favorite moments, songs, quotes from this musical?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I had already mentioned the part where Emma talks about her how her sister's death affected her life when I was
Mhm.
giving my impressions. Like, well, once again, that part was very well written. Like I said, like I'm sure the people writing this play are super talented, like for
Mhm.
sure. But I just wasn't expecting something that deep in this musical,
Yeah.
So that was really nice. Much like what Udi said, in terms of the songs, like I mean, I guess one of my favorite parts is definitely when Paul wakes up the next day and like
Mhm.
everybody's like infected with the music with the the aliens he's
Yeah.
experienced it all for the first time. Like that was pretty fun because he's just like, oh
Yeah.
my god, what's happening.
Yeah, La Di Da Da Day. That's the name of the song.
Gotcha.
Where
Yeah,
he's
that
like,
was
"Why is everyone singing? What is going
yeah,
on?"
exactly.
I mean, it is kind of terrifying when you think about the implications.
It is. It is. So that was a lot of fun. Udi had already mentioned the boss and what
Mhm.
his desires are with the song that he does. Like that was funny. Um, you guys were talking about how it's inspired by like a lot of like different other horror movies. Like it does the whole like really cool twist thing that most horror movies do, where it seems like they're about to escape, but they're actually not gonna. They're actually not going to escape because they get on the
Yeah.
helicopter and like the pilot's infected, and then they crash the helicopter. Like that was cool. I like that was a cool little twist that they did. And then like I don't know, did Paul get infected at the end?
Yes, he does get infected when he goes to destroy the meteor that falls on the theater. He like has that battle where he's like fighting and he's like singing but not singing. He's like, is this who I am? Is this not who I am? Is this what it's like to be happy? And that part. So, uh, to answer your question, yes, he does get infected.
Gotcha.
Continue.
Yeah, I thought he got infected, but yeah. So once again, cool little like twist ending. Uh, the part where what was the name of his coworker that had the daughter that he had to go rescue at the school?
Bill.
Yeah, Bill. When Bill had to go
Mhm.
rescue his daughter at the school, like that was a pretty like deep, like dramatic moment right there. So that was a I thought that was a pretty well done scene.
Mhm.
It's funny because it's not just with this musical, but just with like media in general, like especially with like sitcoms and whatnot. Like to this day, like sitcoms and like TV shows that tend to have a more comedic tone throughout a majority of the show, and then all of a sudden have like a super like dramatic moment. Like it always makes me feel uncomfortable because I watch these things and I'm expecting to laugh and have fun, but then this super serious, super sad, dramatic moment happens and it's like, ooh, I feel super uncomfortable now. And I will admit, I did feel a little uncomfortable when we got to that scene at the school because like just the and that's not a detriment to the musical. It's just that's just how I am, like with
Yeah.
any media, because like I watch an example would be like I used to watch a lot of like George Lopez when I was a kid, and like there's I remember watching one episode where something like super serious happens and I was just uncomfortable the entire time, so I was like like, and then I
Mhm.
kind of felt that way when Bill had to go rescue his daughter, but that was a very well done scene. But yeah, that's just how it is for me when it comes to like stuff like this.
It kind of reminds me of like the episode of Drake and Josh where Josh is like, "I'm done," and he's like supposedly done with hanging out with Drake or like acknowledging him, and then like the whole episode is Drake trying to be like, "Oh, come on, you're just joking, right? You're like you're gonna talk to me again," and like Josh is just ignoring him, living his life, and like there's like a whole big meltdown. It's like super dramatic, and then at the end they make up, of course. But like I remember that feeling like so serious and so like crazy, like dramatic in like while watching.
Exactly. And it's good for media like that to have scenes like that because in the end, like life is dramatic. It's not always happy go lucky.
That
So
is true.
it's good for scenes to happen like that, but once again, it's just always uncomfortable when it does happen.
Yeah. I especially like when shows or like media that's generally more lighthearted has like serious moments because I feel like it hits so much harder. Like comedies, for example, like the movies that are mostly like funny and comedic, I feel like they generally also tend to be not always, like obviously it depends on the comedy and stuff like that, but they can also be like really great dramas because you can go from like laughing and whatever one moment to like being super serious and dramatic the next, and it's because of the tension that's just there. Like something that's just like funny, laugh, laugh, laugh the whole time. It's like, okay, like, I mean, again, it depends what it is, depends what the project is, but I feel like there's not really a lot of depth there. But like, if you're getting like super high highs from like laughing really hard, and then also like super low lows from like a super dramatic scene happening, it's like, oh, whoa, like I feel like it really kind of gives you like a really unique and deep experience that way, which I appreciate.
Hmm.
Agreed.
They're really good at that balance, at least in my opinion. Star Kid's really good at that balance of taking something really funny and then adding like the deeper, more quote unquote sad uh elements to it. And I think they blend well together too. Like none of the scenes seem choppy or um out of place. And I mean I have watched it several times, so uh I don't exactly have the most fresh or most unbiased opinion on that, but they definitely like added in because it doesn't start out like very dramatic or anything. It's pretty funny, and then as you work your way through the story, you realize, oh, these are characters who are people that have had issues or are going through things, and like this is just a terrible situation for them on top of other situations that are happening to them. Okay. If you guys don't have any more thoughts on like your favorite parts or anything, I can say mine.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what your favorite parts were.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So like I said, I've seen this several times. Like my favorite songs in the musical is Join Us and Die. I think a very good song. The villains, yeah, they're just people singing musicals. They're pretty like, oh, drink your poison coffee, for the cops to do what we say type thing. But then you just have these two show up and they're like, you are joining us and you are dying, whether you like it or not. It's pretty like intense, I guess. Also, it's sung really well. And then show stopping number with the professor. He's like wants to be writing a musical or whatever, right? And turns out that's his downfall. But because of that musical number, Working Boys is actually becoming a short film. I have no idea when it's going to be out to everyone, but they've been working on it for a really long time to try to get it out. So like that's a thing that's coming. And then I like Paul and Emma's dynamic. I like Bill and Alice's dynamic, father daughter dynamic, and like Not Your Seed. That's the song Alice sings in the high school. Is really good. Like it really sucks that she like dies. Kind of heartbreaking. So I do have some quotes. I don't know if you guys had any that stuck out to you, but I can run off some quotes. So, you're either in the smoke club or you're out. I like that quote. The apotheosis is upon us. It's for the planet. Snacking on a dead man's face. Please God, I just want a black coffee. I'm going to kick your head. Wear a watch. No thanks. Bye. And ya noodle. So, I mean, it's a 2.5 hour long musical or something like that. There's constant talking. Like, you can listen to the soundtrack and still pretty much, I feel like, get some of the musical, but like you definitely have to watch it. It's not like Hamilton where you can listen to the whole thing and you get the whole thing minus like 2 songs. It's definitely something you should watch and listen to over and over again, because Star Kid deserves like recognition, because they're like, they became a thing, an internet thing back in the day with Harry Potter musical, and the only reason they put Harry Potter musical on YouTube is because they didn't want to make cast CDs of their musical, and it just took off from there.
Oh, I just want to say real quick, I do enjoy the ya noodle quote.
Yeah, like ya noodle. It's just so silly.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of stuff like the slow motion kick in the helicopter is hilarious to me. So I guess if you guys have anything else to say, you can say it now. Otherwise, I can ask you what star rating you would give this musical.
I think I'm good to move on to ratings.
Okay. What'd you give it?
All right, so I would rate The Man Who Didn't Like Musicals. I'm gonna give it
Guy.
what?
The guy who didn't like
Oh yeah, the
musical.
guy. Sorry, the guy who didn't like musicals. I would give the guy who didn't like musicals a solid 3.5 out of 5. Very
Okay.
enjoyable. I don't know if I'd go out of my way to watch it again, but I did really enjoy what I watched.
Okay. Okay. I'll take that, I guess. Udi, do you have a score?
I'm gonna give it a 1.5 out of. I'm just kidding.
What? No. I mean, if you
Because it's
have
not
to.
for me.
Okay. I mean, I do that with mine,
Shots
so I can't argue with
fired.
that. But
Shots
what's your
fired.
real score?
No, Dan's thoughts are literally being on the money for what I was gonna say. I'm gonna go 3.5 and very enjoyable. Probably won't watch it again at least anytime soon, but it was enjoyable, funny, well performed, and yeah, 3.5.
You wanna guess mine?
1.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
Nah.
0 stars. I'm just kidding. We all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually no stars. I can't give it any stars.
A
No.
half star.
No, I give it 5 out of 5. So I don't know if it's my most favorite thing, but when 2020 happened, and I was like, well, actually, I got into Star Kid slightly before 2020 and 2019 because my sister was like, "Here, watch this thing," and so we watch a lot of Star Kid stuff together. We're actually gonna watch Nerdy Prudes Must Die together, so there's that, and it's just really good. So
I might
five out
go
of five
back
for
and
me.
actually finish Holy Musical Batman one of these days.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But our total is 4 out of 5, and I'm the one that causes that this time. All our movies are like basically that score, so yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the next movie. So next up is As Above, So Below. This movie is a found footage film about a group of explorers who venture deep into the French catacombs to uncover a dark secret that lies within the city of the dead. So, what are your thoughts on this movie? Udi, do you want to go first? Dan, do you want to go first? Should I go first?
How about you go first, Miranda?
Okay, so turns out I had already seen this movie before. I actually watched it with my siblings. And I originally thought it was kind of dumb. I'm not sure if that's the right word to describe my feelings, but that's the one that came to my mind. But with that being said, this watch was actually a lot more interesting than the first watch. It was a bit more engaging this time than it was before. It made more sense, although the end I found like fell a little flat. I did jump a few times actually and was like, I do not like that part. Do not like that. That is uncomfortable. And it can definitely be very claustrophobic at times. And I definitely feel bad for the documentary maker slash camera person, because like he was just there to make a documentary and they basically like caused his death. So that sucks. But I think this movie works better as like a handheld Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones, Uncharted adventure film than it does as like a horror movie. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this movie.
All right, so I will go next. As above, so below. Okay, really funny backstory for our listening audience here. So for some reason, like I knew this was a movie about the catacombs of Paris, but for some reason, I don't know why, I thought there was mutant lizard people as like the monsters in the catacombs. So while we were watching this, I asked. I think I turned to Udi or someone, and I was like, "Hey, when did the mutant lizard people show up?" And then Udi's like, "What? What are you talking about?"
I thought it was a joke at first, and then I was like, "Oh no, he's serious."
Yeah. So I don't know why I thought that. Our
You
working
were thinking
theory.
it was another movie.
Yeah, our working theory right now is that I confused this with what's it called, The Descent.
Yeah, The Descent.
But those aren't like lizard people in The Descent; they're just humans. So
Well, they're
I
humanoid
don't.
creatures.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that, but yeah, it's probably
Were
because I
you
confused this.
thinking?
What's up?
Were you thinking? Were you thinking it was a Doctor Who episode?
Well, I just thought
Something like
there
that,
was
like
like.
some crazy sci-fi movie?
Well, I thought it was a creature feature. Like I thought they were gonna go
Oh, okay.
down into the catacombs and get attacked by creatures, mutant lizard
I
people.
mean, they do get attacked technically by
They
creatures.
do, yes, but by the demons of hell. They get attacked by the demons of hell, not so much mutant lizard people, but that's besides the point. Anyway, like Miranda already alluded to, I would be very surprised. Well, I wouldn't say I would be very surprised, but I swear, I feel like this movie was originally pitched as a Tomb Raider horror movie because it is just the Tomb Raider comparisons are uncanny. You got the main character who's a treasure hunter, who's British, has a British accent, father mysteriously disappeared. Like, she's Laura Croft. Like, come on. She is Laura Croft. This, like I said, my working theory is that this was originally pitched as a Tomb Raider horror movie, but for whatever reason they couldn't get the Tomb Raider license, or maybe like I don't know who owns the Tomb Raider rights to the Tomb Raider IP right now, but maybe they didn't want to do it. But either way, I liked As Above, So Below. It was a pretty good movie. Actually a really big fan of like found footage movies. I like watching those. I'm a big fan of Cloverfield, which we should cover that on the podcast one day.
I'm
Just
sure we will at some point.
yeah. So like I like found footage movies. This one was pretty good. The skill, because I mean, both you guys know I do not go out of my way to watch horror movies. Like if I can, I usually just skip like legit horror movies, but this is one I actually really enjoyed, and I'm glad that I watched it. There weren't too many. There was only one jump scare that really got me, and you know what, I'll give the movie credit. It was a good jump scare. It was a really good jump scare, so like I'll give the movie credit there. But like the whole like treasure hunting aspect and like mystery of the movie is what really drew me in. I liked the interactions between the different characters, and like Miranda was saying, I felt really bad for the cameraman because he clearly didn't want to be there, so it
They
sucked
kind of
for him.
just forced them to
E-
go on
e-
with their stupid idea.
Exactly, but no, man. As Above, So Below is a pretty great movie. Really good horror movie if you want to watch. If you want to watch something spooky around spooky season. The only aspect of the movie that I didn't really like was the ending, because the ending didn't make sense to me that much, and it's kind of just like nobody really acknowledges what happened with the ending. But other than that, pretty solid film. I liked it.
Pretty fair review, I would say. Judy, what were your thoughts?
I liked it. All right, there we go.
Yes,
That's yep.
that makes sense. You did pick it, so
Yeah,
why
yeah,
did
it's
you
my
pick
pick.
it?
I picked it partly because I was trying to find like the most tame horror movie I could find that was still at least somewhat spooky, not necessarily scary, but just like creepy or spooky.
I really
And
appreciate that. As you
yeah,
know, we're scaredy cats, so thank you.
no problem, no problem. And this is a movie that I really enjoy, and I've only watched it a few times, but I remember especially the last time that I watched it, it like really clicked with me, and I was like, man, this is just like a really enjoyable, like fun, short horror movie. And it's funny because the way that I pitched this to Dan and Miranda is like how Dan was explaining. I'm like, this is literally just a horror Tomb Raider movie because it's literally what it is. Like even down to like the protagonist like backstory with her dad. Like she's literally like Laura Croft Tomb Raider. So
And then once again, she even has the British accent. That's what I'm
yep.
saying. Like this had to have been a Tomb Raider horror movie. It had to have been at its start.
Or at least that's directly what like the writer was inspired by because it's
Yeah, or
literally
that, or
just Tomb
that,
Raider.
or
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I would even go so far as to say that I would argue that it's even the best Tomb Raider movie that we've gotten yet, even though it's not technically, not legally Tomb Raider.
I can attest to that. Although I have not seen the Alicia Vikander one, but
Yeah, I want to watch it as well. I haven't
it's not
yet
bad.
either. Yeah, I
It's
mean that's
pretty like
base.
okay.
Yeah, that's basically what I've heard. Is like it's not bad, but it's okay. It's fine. It's
It's
watchable.
not a cinematic masterpiece, but
Yeah,
it's a fun watch.
yeah. But yeah, I love the cast. Like the protagonist, I think I've only ever seen her in this. I think, and I feel like she's great in this. So like that's cool. Like she's really good. I like the. I guess I don't know if he'd be like the secondary protagonist, but there's like a guy who's like her friend slash love interest. And he is played by Ben Feldman. Uh,
Hmm.
I've only seen a few things with him, and I like him in every single thing that I see him in. He had a short role in Mad Men till they wrote him off in like the weirdest, most sudden way ever. Um, and then the other thing that I know that he's in is Superstore. He's good in that. I've watched a little bit of that, so yeah,
Yeah.
he's great here as always. And yeah, I loved it. And then I like that they had some French cast members. The coolest part to me is that they actually filmed in the catacombs. Like they were actually given permission by the French government to film in there. That's so cool.
Oh, that
that
Um,
is
is
really
really
cool.
cool. Yeah.
yeah, Jinx,
They're
whatever you
like
say about it.
literally, they're literally in the French catacombs, which
Yeah,
turns out they actually look like that. But since they filmed there, that makes sense. I don't
yeah.
know really if I really want to go to the French catacombs where there's just a bunch of human bones and skulls. Kind of freaks me out.
I mean, you wouldn't be crawling through any you wouldn't be crawling over any bones or anything. I mean, I guess if the idea of just like looking at
Oh no, this movie suggests otherwise.
well, that's just because they're going to secret passages. If you're
That's
just
true.
taking the regular tour, you shouldn't be crawling over bones. But the
Yeah,
the French
they would
do
probably frowned upon that.
probably. I would assume so. I feel like it'd be like the same thing as like the guy who peed on the family tree in Midsommar. Not that you know what I'm talking about, but for the listeners out there, they'll know what I'm talking about.
I'm sure they will.
But anyway, yeah. I liked it. It was very well made. And yeah, I picked it because it was a tame horror movie, but like it's still an effective one, still fun. Had a couple of good jump scares, and yeah.
Yep. Definitely was not expecting some.
What do you guys think that this works as a horror movie?
Oh yeah, for sure. This totally works as a horror movie because I guess to get more into the quick premise of what this movie's about, these people go to hell. They take a quick trip to hell, and
More or less, yeah.
yeah, and are haunted by the past
Their
uh,
past mistakes.
past mistakes, yeah, ghosts, demons, whatever you want to. Well, I wouldn't really say
Weird
demons,
cult
but
members.
yeah, what was the deal with the cult? Because they're just like there, and then like they peer through and they see them, and then they just keep walking. Like, oh yeah, there's weirdos down here, and then they just keep like. If I saw that when I was down there, I would be like, are we gonna talk about that? Like,
I mean, they're just used to seeing creepy, weird things down there, you know?
I guess. But when they are going through quote unquote hell, like I did feel those were some of the best parts of the movie because that's when the creepiness and like the mystery really sets in, and it's like just seeing their journey, all the stuff that they have to go through, like jumping down that like super deep hole, like that was like ooh, like would
Yeah,
not want to do that.
no, don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
And
Not
then
at all.
like finding when they get to the place where the philosopher's stone is located, and then they have to like solve the puzzles to like get the philosopher's stone. I loved that part because that felt very like classic, Uncharted, Indiana Jones, hell, even Tomb Raider, it felt very like classic treasure hunting adventure movie to me. So I really liked that part. And but yeah, no, I would definitely say this does work very well as a horror movie.
I kind of disagree. I don't think it really works. I mean, it works as a movie with horror elements, but like I don't know if I personally would consider it a horror movie. Like technically Alfred Hitchcock's movies are considered horror movies now, but back in the day they were just thriller because like the horror genre didn't really exist necessarily. So like it's definitely got like the horror elements in it. And now I don't watch a lot of horror movies because I'm a scaredy cat. So I don't really know. I mean, I definitely was freaked out by it, and I think they definitely could have done more with the horror to make it more like horror movie-ish. But then it's like technically Get Out is also a horror movie. I guess what I'm saying, it's not a slasher. I don't know. Maybe I need a moment to think about my thoughts on this.
Well, it's interesting, because how you were saying like you wouldn't really consider it a horror movie because like when I watched Get Out for the first time, I was surprised to learn that was considered a horror movie. Honestly,
Yeah, like that in the most broad terms is a horror movie, but it's definitely more of just a social thriller.
Hmm.
And as like to what you were saying about like Alfred Hitchcock, I don't really know that most people consider his movies horror like now, even nowadays. Like he's very
Hmm.
much seen as the
Okay.
king of thriller movies. Like I guess you could make an argument maybe for Psycho
or Birds.
or The Birds, but that would be it, I would think, from what I know of his filmography. Like pretty much all of his movies are just like he is the king of thrillers and like suspense.
Hmm.
But so like that is like the tricky thing. Like for this one, I think it works as a
Hmm.
horror movie, but I think it's because like for all intents and purposes, it is a horror movie. It just happens to also be an action adventure movie. And to your
Mm.
point,
Okay.
it does definitely feel more action adventure-y because like I would say at least the first half of the movie, like at most it'll have a few creepy moments, but it's mainly just like the action adventure movie. And then in the
Hmm.
second half, once they go through the gates of hell, then it becomes a horror movie. But I mean, I think it's kind of like spoiler alert. I don't know if you guys have watched this or whoever listening, but spoiler alert for From Dawn Till Dusk. That goes from like a criminal, like like a crime drama to a horror movie kind of, because it goes from just these guys like on the run after they I think they rob a bank, or I don't know, they do something. I don't quite remember what the beginning part of it, but basically just like they're hiding out at this bar. just like bide some time, and then they end up going to this bar in the middle of nowhere where it's actually a vampire hangout, and then they all start turning into
Hmm.
vampires and like killing everyone.
Interesting.
And I think like the horror genre, I feel like kind of works in interesting ways where like that one I don't really know what the genre is. I would assume it'd
Hmm.
be at least partly or like generally speaking horror, but like yeah, so like that's like another example of like a movie kind of starting out one way and then actually uh edging out towards like horror or leaning horror.
So then what is like horror then? Like Get Out, Nope, Us, As Above, So Below. Even the guy who didn't like musicals, technically you could argue they're all horror, but yet they're not. Maybe the genre is just so broad in the types of things because you can go from like a comedy musical about aliens to going to the underworld and, dealing with your past mistakes to fighting ghosts to a guy murdering a bunch of teenagers because they're doing things that society frowns upon, like smoking and such of that. And it's so broad. I've never thought about it that way before. Because, yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, like I will just say, and I don't mean anything by this, but like I really wouldn't know. I really don't think that I would say that the guy who didn't like musicals is horror. I would definitely say it's more like a black comedy sci-fi musical. Like I would not consider it horror.
But, like, in the broadest sense.
Even still, I wouldn't. It's so similar to The World's End, and like even The
Hmm.
World's End, I wouldn't consider a horror movie because it's not. It's not at all. It's definitely a sci-fi like black comedy,
Hmm. What do you mean by.
like a dark comedy,
Okay.
essentially. Yeah, I don't know what the distinct difference is. I guess between like dark comedy versus black comedy. I don't know. But yeah, it's a dark comedy. I guess I should just put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say: like, if you're afraid to go to sleep after watching the movie, then it's a horror movie.
I would agree with that, actually.
I think well, because like that is the interesting thing about the horror genre and why I've always loved it is because it is very broad. You get different flavors. So you get slashers, you get torture based ones that people like Hostel or Saw. You get psychological horror. You get like cult based horror. You get
Hmm.
demon possession horror.
My least favorite type of horror movie.
Yeah.
Just saying. F those movies.
And they all have a different flavor and they all have different like themes and thematic content and reasoning like reason to exist, but generally speaking I feel like the horror genre most typically like the broadest way you can think about it is that it's always sort of like a critique on society in some way shape or form or discussing things about society in some way shape or form. So like for example like the slasher thing, it's like the people that are killed are at least from the beginning of like that subgenre. It was always like dumb, high school or college kids who are doing things that they shouldn't, and so the killer goes and kills them to show like, oh, this is what happens if you participate in these bad activities. You're gonna get killed out in the woods because you're bad, or something like that. And it's like when you like look at it, it's like this is really stupid and silly,
Yeah.
because it's like the most I don't know. It's almost like a dare ad, like "Don't do drugs, kids, or a slasher will come and kill you in the middle of the woods." And it's like it's okay, sure. For most people, they can just get enjoyment out of like, "Oh no, it's creepy because a guy is standing creepily in the woods and is gonna come at me with a knife." Ah,
I was gonna say because while we're talking, because we were thinking of different movies that you could consider a horror movie at the time. I'm pretty sure people consider the 1954 Godzilla a horror movie.
I mean, it's definitely
yeah.
horrific. Hulu counts Godzilla as a Halloween thing, so I would say yes.
I would say out of any of them, probably the original is probably the closest to being a horror movie, and I wouldn't even be surprised if it would technically be considered one because it's really not
Yeah.
sci-fi at all. It's definitely a lot more horror-y because it's just dealing with like the horrors of war and of man and in the repercussions of all that.
How do we always turn it back to Godzilla? Oh, technically,
Because
according to a
That's our
lot.
job.
I mean, I
because
know, I
this was
know.
supposed to be a Godzilla podcast, so
It is a Godzilla podcast and other movie podcast. We cover everything.
we do,
But
we do.
according to Letterboxd, Godzilla is a thriller, science fiction, and horror. So yeah, that's interesting. Maybe I don't like horror movies. Maybe I do like horror movies, but not all horror movies. Certain
See,
subgenres of the genre.
See, that's the thing is I can't say that I don't like horror movies either because like once again, the only horror movies that really frighten me are ones that deal with supernatural elements like ghosts, demons, all that crap. Stay stay the hell away from me with those movies like The Conjuring, Exorcist. Screw all of those movies. I will never watch them. But like I'll watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I'll watch Halloween. I'll watch Friday the
You'll watch
13th.
Nightmare on Elm Street, but not some ghost. He
Yes.
goes into your dreams and kill you. How are you supposed to
Freddy
sleep?
Krueger isn't that scary. He's a troll. Freddy
I
Krueger's just
haven't
a
seen
big
that one
troll.
yet,
So
so
I don't find him that scary. So that's why. But like my favorite subgenre of horror movies, I love creature features. Like the most
that makes sense.
recent one I can think of is the Last Voyage of the Demeter. Like I haven't seen that one, but I would watch it because it's creature feature, and I love creature features. So like I'll watch
Yeah.
those any day. And I kind of want to watch The Descent because there's creatures, So
How do you
Yeah.
feel about horror movies with dots of dark hallways that you can't see the end of?
yeah, screw those
Nope.
two. Screw you,
Mm-mm.
Barbarian.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Nope.
Barbarian. Okay. Horror movies with dark hallways and creepy monster ladies. Yeah, screw all those.
So The Shining?
Oddly specific.
I was referencing Barbarian, but yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen Barbarian. That is one of the movies that is on my list on Letterboxd of movies I will never watch. Also includes Hereditary and Midsommar. So,
Dang it.
know.
I should have tricked you. I should have put Oh well, actually, just kidding. There's no freaking Barbarian physical disc. I hate Disney. Screw you.
It
But
was
if there was a disc,
It's Disney?
well, like a different company under Disney, but like for all
Oh,
intents and
okay. I
purposes,
was
it is
like,
Disney.
very interesting there.
But I would have swapped the disc out for. I should have swapped the disc out if it had existed. For As Above, So Below with Barbarian, and be like, all right, time to watch As Above, So Below, and then just started Barbarian.
It was really funny because I think last year me and Udi did a double feature where we went and see how they run, and then Udi asked me, okay, so for the second movie that you want to watch, do you want to do Pearl or do you want to do Barbarian? And so I looked up the trailer to Barbarian and I was like, yeah, no, let's go with Pearl. But if I wouldn't have looked up the trailer and just been like, yeah, sure, we could do Barbarian, I very well could have watched that in theaters, and I'm so glad that I didn't choose that movie.
I so wish you hadn't watched that trailer. It would have been so fun to watch your reactions in the theater.
Oh my god, I would have been cowering in the theater.
Yeah, the only
Dang.
way you're ever gonna get both me and Dan to watch any of these horror movies is if you trick us. Because I'm not
Yeah, you have to
voluntarily.
trick us. Yeah, because we'll never
watching
voluntarily watch
Midsommar.
these. And even then, if you trick me into going to the theater to see like The Exorcist or something crazy like that, I'm just gonna get up and walk out.
I'm gonna
Right,
handcuff
yeah,
you
you could do
to
that.
me. Like we're gonna sit down and I'm gonna handcuff you and you're like, wait, what? And then the title's gonna come up and you're like, no. And then you're gonna be stuck there with me.
Oh my god.
Okay. Well,
Now that we've
so
gone completely off the rails.
I mean, not really. It's on the topic of horror movies, which this one is technically considered, so it counts. I guess now I'm curious. Udi, do you have a favorite subgenre of horror movies?
Most specifically, probably cult-based horror. I find people to be the scariest thing out there because people are very unpredictable. And cults specifically frighten me because I feel like it's incredible and not in like a positive way. I feel like it makes me feel like I find it unbelievable to believe that people can be so easily brainwashed into following some sort of either ideal or like a cult of personality, like a figure, like especially if they're following like a person. Like I can understand idealizing or idolizing someone. Like that makes sense to me. Like everyone does it to some degree, whether it's celebrities or musicians. Or, like I don't know, but like
Mhm.
to so devotedly, like follow someone to the point of like murder and things like that. It's just like that's so insane to me. And so like watching stuff like that happen, and I think especially for like in terms of movies, not real life, but like in terms of movies, like especially when it comes to like the occult or like the supernatural, like that can be really creepy if done well, like in Hereditary.
Mhm.
So I really enjoy that. And then secondly, I would say probably more like psychological horror. Because I don't like jump scares, and it's not because it's like, oh, it's so scary. It's really not scary. It's just like it
Yeah,
startles
it
you in
is.
the moment because it's usually just like loud music or loud sounds out of nowhere, and it's
Mhm.
like even if you can tell by the framing, which after you watch enough like horror movies, like it's very easy to pick up on. Oh, the framing is setting
Mhm.
up for a jump scare. Like, yeah, it's gonna happen. Even still, it can still kind of get you because like it's just like a loud thing. It's like, ah, Jesus, why are you
You know what
doing
I
Mhm.
this?
hate are the fake out jump scares.
Oh
When it's
yeah.
like when it's like somebody they're like mopping and then all of a sudden there's a person that just shows up behind them and they're like, hi, how are you? And then the music is just like boom. You know, like I hate those jump scares.
Yeah. Wasn't the best jump scare Dark Flash in the Flash?
Yeah, that there was that did get me. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so funny. It wasn't just you. There was other people that I saw jump and I was like, "Oh my god." I mean, to
See
be
this
fair, like even I was sitting like, "What is that?" And then finally he comes at the screen like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess it was just him." But
this is why all of my friends want to force me to watch horror movies because they love seeing me scared for whatever reason.
it's fun to watch people
I
scared.
won't force you to watch any scary movies.
Like my friends from Michigan made me watch The Conjuring freaking like a couple years ago. That is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life. Screw that movie.
Okay. Well, then I don't ever want to watch that then.
No, we'll watch that next year. No worries.
Okay. Well, I did make a list of Halloween movies and I did put the original Japanese Ring on there, Ringu or whatever it's
Hmm.
called. But then I heard about that it's kind of actually creepy. But then the Ring, the American one, is also very creepy and now I'm deciding I don't want to watch either of them.
Let's take every copy of The Grudge and just burn it, please.
Yeah, I haven't watched the original like Japanese Ring, but I've heard it's way creepier than the
Yeah.
American one. So, yeah, I guess I'll get back to you on whenever if I ever watch that. But I think the American ones are not that bad.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's the original, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, don't take this the wrong way, but this is what I meant by like horror movies that use like creepy women for their imagery, like the Ring chick, the Grudge, like Thing from Barbarian. Like I hate monsters like that. Like
You hate women, Dan? I'm kidding.
that's what
Jeez,
I'm saying.
wow.
That's what I'm saying. Don't take it the wrong way, but when these movie studios use women in like creepy ways like that, and then like even like Reagan from The Exorcist, like man, hate it.
So if it was a guy, you wouldn't be scared. Is that what you're saying,
No,
Dan?
I'd be just as scared. But uh
Like I would
I
be
mean,
scared
yeah.
either way, so
But you know what's even creepier than like adults are children. Like children are
Oh,
way creepier than
they can
when
be
used like in
sometimes.
horror movies like that.
yeah, they can be. It depends on their use, I guess. But
There was a child in As Above, So Below in the stupid jump scare that made me jump.
what was the jump scare that made you jump?
I don't know. Though there's the one where the camera guy, like, I don't know, something with that, and then like a lady with a baby pops up in the background, like walking in the background, and like he's like, "Is someone there?" And he talks to whoever it
Oh,
is, and I'm like, "Ah, this makes me so uncomfortable."
The
And then
one
I don't remember the other jump scare that got me, but
I was gonna say the one that got me was I think they were trying to go down the hole and
Mhm.
the guy had the camera and then that one cult lady just pops up out of nowhere and it causes him to
Yeah,
like
that
fall down. That was the one that got me.
yeah,
I think that was the same one that
yeah,
she was talking about. But I
yeah, I think
thought
so.
was the other one that maybe got you, Miranda, and or Dan? Was that the one where it's like La Taupe was just sitting there and they're like, hey, and then and then the girl gets like her head smashed in by Le Taupe.
I didn't like that part. I
I
just,
mean, that one didn't get me as bad as the cult lady, but that was a pretty good scare.
Mm.
yeah, like, I mean, it's definitely if you're engaged and watching, it definitely makes you claustrophobic, and if you're like paying attention without distraction, you're gonna like react. At least I reacted. And I didn't use humor to like deflect the situation going on because we were actually pretty like. I mean, we talked a bit, but we were pretty like engaged with the movie. Actually, we were pretty engaged with all three of these. But yeah. Did we have any more thoughts on As Above, So Below? Even though we got kind of off topic, but kind of not.
I think, I mean, I pretty much said all I needed to say about this movie so far.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we pretty much covered most of it. I mean, there might be more nuance to add or things like that, but I think
Mhm.
for this, I think I think we covered pretty much everything.
Okay, then let's do our star rating. Dan, yours?
Hmm. This is actually kind of tough for me because, like, I really did enjoy this movie, and I probably would watch it again. But I just wasn't. Once again, I just didn't like the ending. You know what? Come back to me. I got to think on this.
Okay. Udi, what's yours?
I'm gonna give it a 3.5. I think it's I think it's well done, and I think it's a fun and enjoyable movie. Has a couple of good scares, can be creepy, um, but overall, I mean, it's not super noteworthy. Like definitely like a movie that you'd watch and be like, I'd watch that again. But unless like you really love it, you might not. But you
Hmm.
know, I really enjoy it, and it's a fun watch here and there. And again, like that's the best Laura Croft Tomb Raider movie that we've gotten so far, even if it's unofficially. So it has that going for it. But yeah, so 3.5 out of 5 for moi. And you?
Yes, my score is a 3 out of 5. So, it's it's not the worst thing I've watched. It's not necessarily my most favorite thing, but I think there's definitely some like uh merit, I guess, to it. Like it's pretty tame horror, which is good, but it also has like a psychological element, and it does kind of take a couple watches, I feel like, to actually like get what is happening and what's going on, at least from my perspective. So Dan, do you have a score yet?
Yeah, I am going to go with another 3.5 out of 5. I once again
Okay.
just just to recap, just to do my short little recap, I really did like this movie. Has some good scares, good suspense, good mystery. I enjoyed the treasure hunting aspect of it, and yeah, pretty enjoyable. If you're like I said, looking for a good spooky movie for Halloween, I'd recommend.
So our average is 3.3333 repeating. So we'll just round that to a 3 out of 5. Okay, so let's move on to our final movie. So our final movie of the day is Ghostbusters from 1984. Ghostbusters follows a group of scientists who get together and form a ghost extermination business. But when a demigod named Gozer threatens to turn Manhattan into Spook Central, it is up to the Ghostbusters and the unlicensed nuclear accelerators they have strapped to their backs to put a stop to Gozer's reign. What are your guys' thoughts on Ghostbusters?
Well, it's a classic. So I feel like it's one of those movies where it's like you watch it after you hear about like you hear people talk about it for so long, and it's like, oh, it's a classic, and you watch and like, yeah, I mean that has the feel of a classic. It's quotable. It has like iconic imagery, has iconic music.
The
Yeah,
music is really good in this, though. Like, surprisingly, like, better than I thought.
that's good. um, yeah, it's one of those where it's a classic, but like I don't really have a ton of strong feelings about it. Like I enjoy it. It's funny. It can be fun. It's definitely like a movie where I feel like I generally have to be like in the mood to watch this kind of movie. But
Hmm.
it's not bad or anything. Like it has no real I have no real problems with it. Like it is what it is and it does what it does or it does what it should do and yeah, it's just it's a fun, simple, like fun romp movie. So yeah, so those are my thoughts. What about you, Miranda?
Yeah, so I've seen Ghostbusters a couple different times. And like I mentioned when you mentioned the music, I did actually like the music in this. Again, watching this in more of a critical point of like view, I definitely was like paying attention to more things. Um, there's one song that I really like. Unfortunately, I don't know the title of it, but it's kind of like I don't know. I think it fits very well with the type of movie it is and the time period of the 80s. Um, I did think there was a lot of smoking in this movie, but again, that's because it's from the 80s. And this time I was like, why does the gatekeeper and keymaster have to be turned into humans and then turned back into gargoyles? Like, it kind of just seems like pointless to me. Like, couldn't Gozer just like show up? But this is a 80s comedy movie about ghosts in New York City, so I'm not applying too much logic to this movie. But, it's funny. It's a Halloween classic, and, like, the theme song is pretty catchy. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm going to pass it to Dan now.
All right. Well, honestly, what can be said about Ghostbusters? Like Udi already said, it is a classic. And Ghostbusters, to me, is one of my all-time favorite movies. I love this movie. It was a huge part of my childhood. I watched it countless amounts of times as a kid, which I don't know if I should have been watching this movie when I was that young, but I love Ghostbusters. Very memorable characters. Um, the effects have a certain charm to them. I mean, they don't look as good as like some effects look nowadays, but for the 80s, I think the effects look pretty freaking good. Like you guys, I think one of you guys had already mentioned there's tons of quotable lines from this movie. Back off, man. I'm a scientist. Don't cross the streams, stuff like that. Uh yeah, man, it's just a really I love putting Ghostbusters. Every Halloween, I put Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on, and just watch it every year at around this time. It's one of my Halloween traditions. I love this movie, and I will always continue to love it. And instant classic for sure. I mean, we pretty much already shared our like initial thoughts on the movie. So, like, did you guys have any like favorite quotes or like favorite characters, favorite moments from the movie, or any scenes that were like memorable or stood out to you in any particular way?
I do like the special effects in this movie. It is from the 80s, so, modern day CGI isn't necessarily a thing yet. Actually, polygons were invented because Tron came out before this, I believe, or around this. Maybe the same year. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But like the practicalness of like the ghosts and all that stuff was really cool. Like when they're in the library and the ghost like messes with all the card catalogs. That's just a guy with like a straw or like a wind blower, air blower, leaf blower, whatever those things are called. Like just shooting air at the cards so to make them fly. And that's really cool. Like because how else are they going to do it? They had to do what they could with practical effects, and that's one thing I like about older like horror movies, Halloween, scary movies is like they don't rely on CGI because they can't, so they do things practical, and then you get some really cool effects, like John Carpenter's The Thing compared to the remake prequel thingy of The Thing, which is not great. But I'd have to say the special effects were probably my favorite thing from this movie.
Yeah, the like I said before, the special effects really do just have a certain like charm to them, and with the practicalness, like you had explained, and yeah, no, it's good fun. It's good fun for sure.
Yeah.
What about
Definitely.
you, Udi? Did you have any like memorable scenes, moments that stood out to you at all, or characters and whatnot?
I think my favorite character is
Is describe him to me, and I'm pretty sure I can name him for you.
The guy with the proton
oh
pack.
no. I think my favorite character is Janine.
Oh yeah,
She's like the assistant for the Ghostbusters. I like her humor, like her lines that she would say, like how she would deliver them, and then I just love how she and Egon just had like a little a casual thing just in the background, where they just be like kind of lightly flirting here and there. Um, and then as far as like the Ghostbusters go, I think Egon's probably my favorite of all
I
of them.
agree. I love Egon.
He is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because you were mentioning like the little moments that him and Janine would have. One of my one of my favorite moments in the movie is like he's like I think he's like fixing Janine's computer or whatever, but it's definitely like flirtatious. And then Janine, she's like, yeah, I also play racquetball and I do this and all I do that. And then she's like naming off all of her hobbies, and she's like, do you have any hobbies? Just looks at her, deadpan serious. I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Yeah.
I love that moment, man. Like that's how you get the ladies right there. So.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's honest, you know.
I know, just Egon, Egon just as a character is so great, just because of how literal he is. Like, there's that part at the beginning of the movie where Peter's like, "Hey, Egon, this reminds me of the time that you tried to like drill a hole in your head," and Egon's like, "That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me." You know, like I just love like literal like characters that can are so literal in their life like that. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay, yeah, okay. Like I just love characters that are like that. And yeah, Egon's great. He's definitely one of my favorite characters. I'm trying to think here.
I will say, oh,
Go
just
ahead.
real quick.
Yeah, go
I,
ahead.
I I know it was a little overdone, but I think like one of my favorite bits in the movie is Rick Moranis' character Lewis getting locked out of his apartment every time he stepped out.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good. Somebody let me
Let me in.
in. And then the part where he's like trying to explain to Dana, like, "Oh, so I turned up my TV really loud, so that way all the neighbors could think that we left our TV." And then she's like, "Bye."
And then he's like, "Oh, okay, thanks." And then he like tries to go back. He's like, "Oh no!" He's like
Yeah,
locked out.
exactly.
He should just keep his key on a carabiner on his pants. It would solve his issue.
Yeah,
Like,
it probably would.
I think the
That wouldn't
idea
be
is
as
that he's
funny
just
though.
a dummy,
I don't
a
think he's
clueless dummy.
dumb.
Well, he's not
So
dumb. He's a dummy. There's a
Yeah, I
difference.
know.
yeah. But you were mentioning like Janine. She does have one of the more iconic moments in the movie where they get their first call, and she goes, "We got one," and then hits the thing to let them know that they got a call. Like that's a very iconic part of the movie, and that actually leads into probably my favorite scene from the movie is when they capture Slimer at the Sedgwick Hotel, because it's just full of so many great moments. Like before they step in the elevator, you got that one guy's like, "Oh, are you supposed to be some kind of a cosmonaut?" And then like Bill Murray's like, "Nah, we're exterminators. Somebody saw a cockroach up on 12," and he's like, "That's got to be some cockroach. Bite your head off, man." Like that part, and then when they get into the elevator and then they turn on Ray's proton pack for the first time, and they all just kind of like stand off to the side because Egon didn't get a chance to like test the equipment out. Like that's great. And then
Yeah, it was just like, I'm just gonna scoot over here a little bit.
yeah,
Just a little
exactly.
bit.
And then another one of my favorite parts is when they get out of the elevator, and then you got that maid like coming by, and then they all shoot at her because they think she's the ghost, and then she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like the way she
The fact
delivers that line is so good. Like I love that.
Not
Yeah, the
just
fact that
that,
she's trying to put out the fire
Yeah, with the
in
spritz
the
bottle.
background.
Yeah.
and she's still cleaning up just random stuff on the ground.
Yeah.
I'd never noticed that until this viewing. That's so funny.
Yeah, no, it's great. Just the entire like Sedgwick hotel scene is just great because even like it has good parts when they're trying to track the ghost down. I love the part where like Egon goes up to that like one guy and he's just like scanning him with the PKE meter and the guy's like what are you doing? And then like he like pushes him a little like that's great. Part where Peter gets slimed is really good, and then when they get into and there's a one line that I also really like at the beginning of the scene where it's like, maybe we should split up, and then Peter goes, "Good idea. We'll do more damage that way." Like that's a really good line. And also the ballroom scene is pretty good too when they catch a ghost for the first time. Oh, great scene. And then like yeah, just the entire like Sedgwick Hotel segment is without a doubt
Mhm.
probably my favorite part of the movie.
Is that your favorite part in all the movies?
And like you mean like in the entire Ghostbusters franchise in general?
Yes.
That is a good question. I don't know, man, because Ghostbusters 2, like, I know a lot of people don't like Ghostbusters 2, but I actually legitimately enjoy Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 2 has some really good moments. Like, I love the Statue of Liberty scene from Ghostbusters 2, but we're not talking about Ghostbusters 2. Maybe for a future Halloween episode, I'll do Ghostbusters 2, but yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that, but that is a good question. But then there's also like another one of my favorite moments, of course, is the Stay Puft scene. Arguably, probably the most famous scene in the movie is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man when Gozer tells the team that they have to choose the form of the Destructor, and well, it just popped in there.
Yeah, because marshmallows aren't destructive. You know.
Exactly. He's a
Oh,
big.
oh, here's a question.
What's up?
Who would win? Godzilla or the Marshmallow Man?
Well, if you see what happens to Mr. Stay Puft after they cross the streams, I think that answer should be obvious because he gets fried and turned into liquid marshmallow. And
That is true.
I think just one shot from Godzilla's atomic breath would obliterate Mr. Stay Puft.
I mean, the packs are nuclear accelerators, right? So
Yeah, unlicensed
it makes
nuclear
sense.
accelerators.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the EPA being like the villain of this movie?
See, that's the thing because I remember when we were watching this, like Udi had made a comment and he was like, I think it's kind of funny that they're making the EPA the villain. And for me personally, I don't really see the EPA as the villain. I see more as Walter Peck, the person, as the villain. He just so happens to work for the EPA. Like I view it more as Walter Peck being the villain, not necessarily the ETA. And even then, or EPA, and even then, he's not really a villain. He's just the antagonist. Like he's like more of the because Gozer, I would say, is the main antagonist, while Walter Peck is more of like the secondary antagonist.
I mean, Gozer doesn't really do anything, in my opinion. Kind of just
No,
stands there.
they don't, and Gozer really doesn't have like their big scene until like the very end of the movie. Like their name
Mm-hmm.
pops up early in the movie, and they appear here and there. But you are correct in that they don't really do anything until like the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, how did you guys feel about them about like Walter Peck and like the EPA and all that?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys mentioned, like when we were watching, I didn't ever realize it before. I'm like, the EPA is kind of like the villain in this, but I guess like you said, it's not really the whole organization necessarily. It's just that one particular guy who doesn't like them. And I don't know if the EPA gives them any other griefs in the other movies.
No, not really.
At least in this one, like I don't know, it's just like the way it was framed. It's like, hey, I'm this guy from the EPA, and I don't like you, and I'm gonna bother you several times, and I'm gonna make a ruckus, and I'm gonna make you release all your ghosties from ghost prison. So I don't know. I just felt a little. I'm like kind of odd that out of all the government agencies, specifically they chose the EPA. But I don't know. I mean, he was more of like a secondary villain. He didn't really matter in the long run. So.
Is it true? Yes, it's true. This man has no dick. What about you, Miranda? Did you have any thoughts on like Walter Peck and the EPA and all that?
I feel like they had to give the team like someone for them to like talk with or like interact with, because otherwise it would have just been them like catching ghosts, and we can see that like they're not great necessarily at catching their ghosts at first, but then they do like that really cool montage with like the news and the radio broadcasters like talking about the thing, and then the newspapers show up and all that. That was pretty cool to see. But otherwise it would have been like, I don't feel like there would be like anything else, so I like the fact that they're like, let's get like someone to like mess things up a bit, because like if they're just catching the ghost, Gozer would have never gotten out, and the demon dogs would never be hunting down um the two people that I forget their names at the moment. So like it's kind of weird, but like it makes sense in terms of the story.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, they just it just makes sense to have some like other person be an antagonist other than just the ghosts, and that's like a trend that's continued in Ghostbusters 2 as well, because they also get like another like human to act as like the secondary antagonist in Ghostbusters 2. But yeah, um, because you mentioned the part where Dana and Lewis get possessed by Gozer's minions, and they become the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper. Like another one of my favorite scenes. I love when Lewis gets possessed and like he's like out on the streets, and then like he finds the guy with the horse, and he's like talking to the horse like, make sure you're ready, the time of reckoning is here, and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, just him, like Lewis like talking crazy to like a horse is like, I don't know, just that imagery is just really funny to me. And then when he like runs off and he's like, you'll perish in flames, the guy is like, wow, what an asshole. Like that delivery was also like really good. Another like small scene that's probably one of my favorites. So, how did you guys feel about the whole like big finale with Mr. Stay Puffed? Like, it definitely, like I said before, one of the more iconic moments in the movie. Also some like really good lines. Like, there's this one part where Peter goes, "See, this Mr. Stay Puffed guy, he's not so bad. He's a sailor. He's in New York. We get this guy laid, we won't have any problems." Like, and the part where he like stomps on the church, and he's like, nobody stomps on a church in my town. Like, I thought the finale was pretty, like, I enjoyed it. Like, granted, the fight with Gozer is really anticlimactic because they show up, they do like a cool backflip, and then like the Ghostbusters hit them with their proton beams, and they kind of just like dissipate, and then like they fight Stay Puffed, and then that's it. A little anticlimactic, but I don't know. I still really enjoy it.
Yeah, I thought the ending was really, really well done, and it was like definitely like a fun finale. Especially, I mean, a lot of '80s movies had very, very fun and interesting third acts, and I think this is no different. It's very, very much a classic ending, like you said, very much a classic climactic battle. I do feel like they get rid of him pretty quickly, but I mean they brought back like the "Don't cross the streams" from earlier, the "Don't cross the streams" gun, or Chekhov's "Don't cross the streams," however you want to put it. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I like just him himself, the big old marshmallow man, is just like fun to watch, and then
Yeah,
getting to watch him get blown up by laser beams is funny.
I also like the irony of the scene because you got this like big happy like marshmallow man just stomping through New York, and I think like Ray asks Egon, you got any ideas? And then Egon's like, I don't know, Ray, I'm far too terrified to even think up of anything. And it's like he's terrified of just this big happy marshmallow man. Like, I don't know, just that whole aspect is just hilarious to me.
I mean, how would you feel if you saw a big giant marshmallow man walking, stomping through the city?
I would probably laugh because it's a big happy marshmallow man. Like, come on,
Yeah, but
it's
do
silly.
you know it's marshmallow though?
I assume it's marshmallow. At least I hope it's marshmallow.
Like, what if it
I
was the
mean,
Michelin
like,
Man?
Michelin Man. Just see the Michelin Man just stomping through New York. I mean, to be fair, the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man does kind of look like the Michelin Man.
He does. I thought for the
yeah.
longest time that it was the Michelin Man until I was like, oh no, it's Stay Puffed. Never mind. He kind of looks like Steve from Stranger Things 3 too.
Yeah. What about you, Miranda? Did you enjoy the ending at all?
Um, yeah, I mean it works for the story. It again is kind of like you said, anticlimactic in some ways. Like we're so used to big action sets in fight scenes and all that stuff to end pretty much every movie that's been made recently, especially superhero stuff. Um, so it actually was kind of just nice and refreshing just to watch a movie where it's just like we're gonna shoot some lasers and that's gonna be it. We did it. Good job, guys. Um, so it's not like you have to sit through a bunch of like fight scenes and stuff. Um, because it's the '80s, so this is a different style of making films too. So I mean, they could have gone more in depth with like Gozer's backstory and stuff, but like it's not that type of movie. If you want that, you can like watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. They touch a bit more on like what Gozer does and whatnot. Um, but like as a standalone, it works well.
Not only that, but if you're a fan of these movies and you haven't yet, which if you haven't, what are you doing? I highly recommend playing the Ghostbusters video game from 2009. It is a continuation of the movies. It takes place after Ghostbusters 2, but before Ghostbusters Afterlife, obviously, because it was released before Ghostbusters Afterlife was even a thought. But in a sense, the Ghostbusters video game, it's just called Ghostbusters the video game. It did get remastered a couple years ago, so like you can get it on like modern consoles if you have like a PS4, Xbox One, PC, Switch. Um, it is, like I said, it's pretty much the third movie. It's the Ghostbusters 3 that we never got. I'd highly recommend it. It's not going to blow your mind. It's not an amazing like 10 out of 10, but for what it is, it's a really fun game and I would highly recommend it. And like cuz Miranda was saying, how kind of like Ghostbusters Afterlife offers some insight on like Gozer. What the cool thing about the video game is so there's a line from Lewis when he's possessed by the Keymaster where he talks about the forms that Gozer has taken in the past, and he references a giant slore. That's a boss fight in the video game, so it's like really cool to like see some of the things that they talk about in these movies, and then see it get realized in the video game. So once again, highly recommend Ghostbusters the video game. Play it if you love the Ghostbusters, if you love these movies, and you haven't yet. But all right, so let's move on to ratings then. What would you guys rate the Ghostbusters movie? But I guess before I ask that, do you guys have any other final thoughts regarding the original Ghostbusters movie at all? Any things you want to get off your chest?
I don't know.
Nope, me neither.
All right, well, let's move on to ratings then. What would you guys rate Ghostbusters?
I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. It's a ghost movie that's not scary. They catch some ghosts, and that's cool.
I will say that since you said it's not scary, that when the librarian ghost, when she like scares the three at the very beginning of the movie,
Hmm.
that did scare me when I watched when I watched first watched this movie because I was a kid at
Hmm.
the time, so like seeing that like rah or whatever, that actually did kind of creep me out at first.
I'm sure this movie freaked me out as a small child as well. I mean,
Yeah,
Jurassic Park definitely did, so
yeah. I mean, obviously
I don't
nowadays
think
it's
I
not scary.
watched it much or at all as a child. I truthfully don't remember. But anyways, Udi, what's your score?
I will give Ghostbusters a 4 out of 5.
Excellent, excellent. I'm gonna be honest. I thought you were gonna give it a 3.5, so I'm very
I was
pleasantly
thinking about
surprised.
it.
Very pleasantly surprised by the 4.
I do kind of feel like it is probably more of a 3.5 for me, but it's just one of those movies where I feel like it's kind of hard to rate in the sense of like it's a classic and like it does everything that it's supposed to do. I don't really have that many problems or anything with it. It's just more of like a personal taste thing. Like I don't vibe that much towards campy movies generally speaking, but when something's kind of campy or silly and it does it well, I like it. I enjoy it still. So like Ghostbusters is in that camp of like I like it. It's still silly and kind of goofy and campy, but it has a charm to it. Has heart to it. And it's funny. It's enjoyable. It's well made. What else can you ask for? But yeah. So 4 out of 5. Why not?
Excellent. Welp, that leaves me then, and I am going to give Ghostbusters a 4.5 out of 5. I agree with Udi. It's because Udi, you were saying it's, in your eyes at least, it's more of a 3.5 than it is a 4. For me, it's definitely more a 4 out of 5 than it is a 4.5 out of 5. But because this is one of my all-time favorite movies, because I have so much sentimental value with it, and I grew up watching it, it's that little bit of sentimental value that's gonna give it that extra half point. Like, once again, I've said it a million times, and I'll probably say it a million more times. I love this movie, man. I love it so much, and yeah, it's great. It's probably one of the most important movies to me personally, because it was the first movie I can remember just watching like over and over and over again.
Well, there you have it.
Okay, so our total average score for Ghostbusters is a 3.83 out of 5, so we'll round that up to a 4 out of 5. Do we have any last thoughts?
Go watch Ghostbusters if you haven't seen it yet. It's a classic.
Might as well just watch all 3 of these.
Yeah, well, Ghostbusters 2, and Ghostbusters Afterlife. We don't
I
we don't
mean,
talk about we don't talk about the 2016 movie.
yeah, you could watch those, but also watch The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, As Above, So Below, and any other spooky movies for the spooky season.
In addition to Ghostbusters, yes, also watch As Above, So Below, and The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, because those two are also great movies.
Well, one of them is on a
Well,
movie, but
one of them's a great movie. The other one's a musical,
yeah.
or a play or whatever.
It's still
But
great.
hey, man, if you can, I don't know what Star Kid's schedule is, but if they're ever like performing The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals and you can get tickets, go see it.
I don't think they really perform that one anymore, and if they do perform, it's in LA, so good luck if you
Well,
get
if you live in
tickets to go
LA,
to
go
LA.
watch. If you
Um,
live in LA, go watch Star Kid.
yeah, they're great. Yes, so that's our conversation about The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, As Above, So Below, and Ghostbusters. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to our conversation about these 3 spooky movies. If you're interested in hearing more of our reviews, check out all of our previous episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Atomic Lizards Pod and on Letterboxd at atomic_lizards. Have a spooky day and a happy
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 Halloween!
Halloween!